I tell you how I'm ranching today, I should tell you that when I started, which was early 80s, I was a very traditional rancher. Because I was young, 25, and I was hardly speaking to my father because we were so much alike, I guess, that we just butted heads all the time. And I was a woman in a man's world, and so, my dad was a businessman. He was not a rancher. So there was no growing up and following him around every day and learning the business, because it didn't happen that way. It happened at a desk for him. So I had to learn it. And so that meant that I was going to KLA type meetings, extension meetings, KSU. I was just trying to find out everything I could. I mean, the one credit I'll give myself looking back now is that I wanted to learn. So in doing that, several things happened. I got some pretty traditional education along the way. But I also met some people, specifically in the Soil Conservation Service at that time, the USDA NRCS now, who really cared about the land. And then there were a few guys older than I was that I put a lot of stock in. And I started hearing things from them that were a little bit outside the box of the traditional ranching. And it made sense to me. And some of it just kind of made sense in my stomach. And so that's when I started making some changes. The other thing was, and I don't know for sure if this had anything to do with gender, but I had a lot of friends in the city. And they ask a lot of questions, and they like to come to the ranch. And if they ask me, well, why do you feed what you feed, or why do you calve when you calve, it was never going to be a good enough answer to say, well, that's what my dad did. So there was a big cycle broken by having a businessman father and being a girl in how I ranched. And those questions kept me on my toes. And anyway, I think that's part of my evolution in coming to where I am now, where we calve in May, you know, just like somebody said, when do deer have their young? When do elk have their young? It's not in February. And so we need, you know, it's kind of just being a little in sync with nature. The question that really set me back was, why are you having your cow's highest nutritional needs come when your grass is at its lowest nutritional output? I mean, I wanted to bang my head against the wall at that point and wonder why it took me so long. You know, Scripture says we can't serve two masters, but we ranchers are trying to do that. We're trying to take care of the land, and we're trying to figure out cattle, usually. I'm going to speak from what I know, and that's cattle. So what I've discovered is if I get really focused on my cattle and what I'm doing with them, my land's going to suffer a little bit. There aren't enough hours in the day, and there's not enough brain cells in my head, I think, to be really, really good at both of those. So those were the things that came from a variety of different places to make me question what I was doing and find out, well, is there a better way to do this? And the big result was to start calving in May. Now, that's how it affected my cow herd. What was happening with my grassland was that, number one, I was considering a conservation easement because I did want it to always be like this. And also somebody came to me and said, we'd like to try, what would you think about going to see a different way to burn? And I'd been watching these friends of mine do a lot of rotational grazing, cells and paddocks. I'd seen what they'd been doing, and I just didn't like the amount of work I thought it was going to take. But this patch burning was going to give me it's not the same, and I understand that, but it was a little bit of a connection in my head that the amount of rest that part of my pasture was going to get. So we started an experiment in, I believe, 2004 with burning 1/3 of my 3 biggest pastures each year, and we had cows in one pasture and full season yearlings in one pasture and double stock yearlings in another. And we went through that twice. I committed to it for 6 years to go through it twice. And I absolutely loved it. It's worked very well for me. I've seen a lot of diversity back in my pasture. And I learned several things in that. We did a breeding bird survey. We found out we had a prairie chicken lek on the ranch and 2 just across the fence line from us. we did butterfly surveys and found out we had 57 different species of butterflies. And I think that the diversity just started bubbling up, the understanding of diversity. And that if we're taking care of our butterflies, we're probably taking care of our Big Macs too. So it was an evolution, if I can use that word, of just starting out, not knowing anything, going through more traditional steps, and then coming around to more non-traditional, but very, I would say, more sustainable too. I think sustainable, and I know there are 1,000 different definitions, and a lot of people don't like the word sustainable, but finding something that really is pretty sustaining was the goal.